All right, welcome back. It has been an interesting few weeks. Wow, I never thought that talking about some of the favorite comics would really make a stir go. OVO Cool Cat was a hit on the show. Boy, did he drop some knowledge that I didn't even know about. I'm not saying we don't like Chad on the show. I want people to understand that. It's just the fact that if Chad's going to go around bribing people for his Patreon, that's pretty sad. And if we have inside information about that happening, I mean, it's a breaking news program. We're going to have to get that information out there, okay? Now, we had a lot of news about Mr. Barry Ribs. He seems to enjoy the show. I'm putting out there on record right now that if we could get a Mr. Barry Ribs to, let's see here, 1,500 followers on Twitter. I remember it was a big deal when he reached 1,000 followers on Twitter. If we can get this man to 1,500 followers, I have all these newspapers that I've just been collecting around the studio. I don't know what to do with them anymore. I've made one piñata. It was in a recent episode. It was a pain in the ass to make. But I feel like I'm getting better at it and I can create, real piñatas. And I think that if we could get Mr. Barry Ribs to 1,500 followers on Twitter, I will make a Barry Ribs replica piñata for this show, and I'll make the backdrop. We'll destroy it on here, maybe with the crowbar. I don't know exactly how we're going to recreate those big glasses that Barry Ribs makes, or perhaps the soundtrack that we're going to insert into the piñata that's going to be just like, when he uploads those videos to Instagram of him singing, or maybe that was Twitter. Those were just great. A great health to you all. What else does he like to say? Just a snippet. He'll never give you the full song. It's just a snippet. We're very excited, and hopefully that Mr. Barry Ribs can actually maybe join this program one day and zoom in. So, I'm very excited. I would love to see a Mr. Barry Ribs. Whoa, that thing went flying like a dart. Really get down and see if we can't get him to 1,500 followers on the Twitter. I'm sure he would really like that himself. And, it'd be a big hit. Maybe we can get Mr. Atticus Flint. Shout out on Atticus on Twitter. We're going to get him, I think it's Barry Ribs' publicist, to see if we can't hook up some type of Zoom call on here. Man, that would really be a hit. And who knows? I know Comic Ray DeVito wants to join. This is just a pre-insert. We're going to be doing our first pop-up show down in Houston tomorrow, hence the shirt. Quarantine is over, people. I don't really know what good it did. I went to Lowe's last weekend during the quarantine, and I've never seen as many people in there as I would, I guess, on a regular basis. It's just, wow, people really don't give a shit right now. And so quarantine is over. I actually saw less people today than I normally would. I don't really understand all that, like how exactly it's working, but it's over. Who knows what good it did? If it did, any cases are still breaking out, and I foresee a bigger case market, a bigger case load coming here pretty soon. I don't know what good that's going to do. Wow, this orchid's really blooming out of control. I got a few more on the studio porch I'll be debuting on the show. I got gardening tips coming, but besides the point, we're going to get back with the Mr. Barry Ribs, 1,500 followers. Don't worry, people. You're probably asking yourself, how am I going to debut the piñata on the show? Wow, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I have installed myself a little system here that I love to have a lot of fun with. Look at that. Wow, just a beautiful pepperoni. Oh, wow. I want to bet we can have a lot of fun with this. So we'll raise the Barry Ribs replica piñata with the glasses, with the soundtrack. Hopefully he'll be able to call in and tell us if he likes the piñata. I don't know. Wow, doesn't that look like a big cock? Whoa. All right. Let's get down to some other news. I don't really know why I'm going so long on this damn podcast, but first pop-up show tomorrow. Now, there is rumor that my co-host tomorrow on the first pop-up show has the same IQ as a Mr. Chad Zumbach, and who knows, probably way smarter than that goon Brian McCarthy. Wow, he's still losing it. I saw where Chip Chipperson came out and made a video for Brian McCarthy. Wow, that was just really funny. Also, if you guys are liking the content, I know there was some kind of sub base blah 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 for Skakefest South. I'm a few hours from Skakefest South. If you know those guys, get me in contact. Send me some contact info. I'll send in a clip. Big deal. If they shut it down, who cares, okay? I'll do a pop-up show in a parking lot across the street during Skakefest. Hopefully Kevin Brennan will be there. He can stop on, say hello. I know I've been in the talks with Mr. Bob Biggerstaff about doing some stand-up. Yes, there will be stand-up with the ski mask on if this clubs can ever open back up. Be on the lookout. Here it is, my first pop-up show. Like I said, my co-host, smarter than or same IQ than a Mr. Chad Zumbuck. Here we go. Woo! All right, so as you just saw, I explained to you guys that my new co-host for the first pop-up show ever would have the same IQ as a Mr. Chad Zumbuck. Now, this is Bella the parrot. I don't know exactly if her IQ is the same. It possibly could be slightly higher than Mr. Chad Zumbuck's after engaging overnight in what could be the most embarrassing Twitter fight he has had yet. He engaged in fight communications with Mr. Brian McCarthy again. I don't know if he's just trying to be like Kevin Brennan at this point by going after people who clearly can't make a stance for themselves. You know, I mean, it's fun going after Brian. It really is. But at some point, it eventually just becomes too much. I know that what it was, Chad Zumbuck posted on Twitter that if people stopped paying Brian McCarthy for his Patreon, he would give away his comedy special. Now, I don't know if he's just trying to give it away because that's an easy sell, or if he just didn't sell enough copies and he's just trying to get people to hear his new material, because I know he's just pushing out new episode after new episode lately. And see, you know, my new co-host here is a lot more quieter than Mr. Chad Zumbuck, too. You know, I feel like he would be wearing his backwards baseball cap and really turn the viewers off immediately. I know Kevin Brennan, what did he post last night on Twitter? I should have brought it in front of me. He posted that Brian called Chad after Chad had posted and freaked out on him and started yelling at him over the phone. Brian got on Twitter and said that wasn't true. But to Kevin's point, which actually makes a lot of sense, why would Brian be taken to Twitter to go after Chad Zumbuck, or why would he call him, better yet, if he had all this money in the world? Then why is he worried about his Patreon numbers? He's really not worried about the listenership, I don't think. It's starting to more sound like he needs the money. And, you know, you could tell by how rough he looks with that bowl haircut and that 5 o'clock shadow. And I'm not trying to rag on Brian too much. I'm just telling the truth. I mean, it's obvious his decline in personal appearance in the past year since he left the MLC podcast. And it's to this point, I think it's almost time to move on and maybe just give all of our focus to Chad, who can't seem to stay out of these Twitter battles. Hold on one second. Let's see if she's hungry here. Oh, look at that. Chicken leg. Look at that. She's definitely not a Bob Biggerstaff by any means. Bob would have eaten this whole chicken leg at this point and already swallowed bone and all. Look at that. Oh. All right, let's see if she wants the chip instead. See, Bob Biggerstaff would have already had this whole plate done. The bowl would be licked clean, and he'd be asking for more. He'd say he'd had to go to the restroom in the middle of the podcast, but really he's just opening the refrigerator. And I'm not hating on Bob Biggerstaff by any means. I'm just saying, because I know that Bob wants to get together here in the beautiful city of Houston, where we are today for the first pop-up show. Oh, look at that cool trick. Look, she's holding the chip up. Wow. She's holding it a lot longer than Chad's podcast. Those things aren't even lasting longer, making big numbers. In other Kevin Brennan news, happy birthday, Mr. Brennan. I understand it's your birthday. A lot of people seem to be wishing you a happy birthday. You may seem that you're turning people off with your arrogance, but I believe that it's causing a great fan base. Down here in Texas, I'm starting the Kevin Brennan official club, so maybe we can get you down here in the comedy clubs, headlining some of these places. I know it's probably been forever since you came to Texas. I went and saw Mr. Gino Bisconti and Aaron Berg in San Antonio at what was Joker's 22, the comedy club. And that comedy club was a mess because they had built a dance studio right next door to it. So the whole time you're up there telling jokes, it's just, and you can't even focus on it. And they got like drunk people coming in there and fall down. And that's one thing about Texas too, is we really don't have a lot of, like, you have hyenas in Dallas and Plano who book names like Florentine gets booked there a lot. I know Nick DiPaolo has a fan base here because probably his conservatism and things like that. But if we could really like start branching out and getting the New York guys down here, getting those guys some actual more better work, besides pop-up stuff like Skankfest and all those places, we really need a bigger comedy club fan base down here. I know it's needed. People want to do that. Because, I mean, all the only clubs you now have down here, people wearing 10-gallon hats, and they can't stop shining their boots. They got the pearl snaps. It's a little bit ridiculous at the end of the day. You want another one? You think you can hold it twice? Look at this. What if she snapped my finger right off? Be podcast gold. Yeah, I wanted to touch on that, the Brian McCarthy, Chad Zumbuck fight. Whew, I don't know, Chad. I know you went after Patton Oswalt because you said, I think the joke was, he was a wife killer, and you got yourself in some trouble, banned for some podcast about that. You've also been in arguments with some other big names. I don't understand what you're trying to do here by getting in a Twitter argument with someone like Brian McCarthy, who is a nobody. He can't even get booked on Jim and Sam or any of those shows. Somebody had to pay Chip Chipperson the whatever the name of that app is, the dumb ones that what was it, Doug Benson declined to do Kevin Brennan's because he's a hack comic, and he doesn't understand the joke and anything. Who cares if you have a little feud going on? He could have made it 10 times as funny. Probably would have gained all of Kevin's Twitter followers. I also mentioned in the prerequisite that I recorded last night before all this news broke out, this is going to be a whole different show, that if we could get Mr. Barry Ribs up to 1,500 followers on the Twitter, then we are going to create a Barry Ribs lookalike piñata and destroy it on the Twitter and on the actual show when we get back to the studio. This is going to be the pop-up show desk. I don't know if I've debuted it yet, but I got the host name, Ski Mask Collective Official. We're kind of doing everything ourselves, so I think we're going to do Galveston all the way to Destin, Florida. We're going to try, and hopefully maybe by that time we can actually book some comedy clubs, and they might be open, and we can book some time at those places, because I think that there'd be a market for it. Who knows? Maybe something will happen with Louis J. Gomez, and we'll get booked at Skankfest South for September. That'd be a lot of fun to do. Or we could just do a pop-up show across the street in the parking lot and really get down to business there. But this all stemmed from hearing that story from OVO Cool Cat the other night when he said that Brian McCarthy was bribing people to get to his... Oh, not Brian. I'm talking way too fast. Chad Zumbuck was bribing people to listen to his Patreon because he just couldn't get enough listeners. Now, if you noticed a thing about Chad Zumbuck's tweets, he mentions a lot that he has so many people signing up for his Patreon, so here's a free piece of merch. Or he has so many people signing up for this and that, or selling out tickets. Hell, he can't even hardly book a club in his hometown because he's already pissed everybody off there, which I respect about Chad, but you got to pick your battles, bud. You can't be picking them with these small-time losers, And I'm not mentioning Brian McCarthy's name because Brian was actually funny at one point on Kevin's show. It went south pretty quickly whenever he started doing that interview show. And now I think I read somewhere today that he's even bashing Adam, the producer from Kevin Brennan's show, who's hilarious, I think, behind the scenes, and would love to see full episodes with that guy. Maybe we'll try to work with him a bit when we get Barry Ribs on here. I know Atticus Flinch is working on that. Barry Ribs, do my show, man. Call in. We need to have a segment. I can get OVO Cool Cat on the line, and we can talk about a lot of these Twitter beefs and some of those songs you always play. I want to sing one of your Chicago songs, Great Health to You All. Just a snippet. Those are the best videos you can post, man. What else we got? Sign up for Kevin's Patreon right now, man. He's pumping out videos, and he's got the video quality to go with the audio. Look at her spinning on that thing. Isn't that fun? I should do a show at an entire zoo one day. Snakes and all. Look at that. I'm about to head down to the pool and be around a bunch of drunks probably. So I decided to do this pop-up show a little early. Look at that little flight in height. It looks like a young Chad Zumbuck getting chased out of a radio station in Cleveland, Ohio. Wow. But he can't just get away. He keeps having to start feuds. How long has it been since Chad Zumbuck worked radio? It's been a long time. Some of Kevin's recent guests have been pretty good. I like when he has the Two Tired Twats on there. We're going to try to get in cahoots with those gals, too, and see if they'd like to call in and give some Kevin news or what's going on with Kevin. I think we're going to start the official Kevin fan base South on the Ski Mask Collective channel. Now I know these recent episodes have been all about MLC, and I'll be pumping out MLC news once, probably twice a week, and then continue with my regular programming. If you watch my videos, I have one or two of me pretending to rob a gas station. Not pretending by any means. It's actually a gas station that I like to rob. I go in there and show you how to do it while the owner was out back taking out the trash. If he would have came in, I think he is packing heat now, so it's a little bit more scary to get out there in the open air. She's definitely not a Bob Biggerstaff by any means. Bob, let's get back together. Maybe you can zoom in, call to the show. I'll be back in the studio Monday, releasing. I think I'm going to do a big Cinco de Mayo blowout, but we will be releasing MLC news. I'll be clipping it, posting it on Twitter. Let's get Kevin up some more followers. Hopefully Kevin is working on a new album. I doubt it, because he comes back and just hammers them with new licks. I saw today some lady posted on Twitter bashing Andrew Dice Clay, of all people. Really a great comic. She was saying, all you have to do now is actually be funny on stage. Let me tell you something. If you don't think Andrew Dice Clay's bits are funny, I'll put the tweet up. I don't remember exactly what it says, but it says, one of his lines from one of his original specials, and it says, if you think this is funny, one of those moderate people. Of course, Kevin came across it and immediately blasted her. But I'm going to see if we can't get Kevin Brennan some spots down here. Hopefully he'll fly out. I think he'll like Texas. I know he keeps mentioning he's got to get out of New York. That rail car is going to get him in trouble. What is it, those inns that he's always running to on those trains? He's eventually going to get himself in some trouble with one of those fellas. But all right, we'll check it in, and we'll sign off at MLC Podcast Ski Mask Collective. Subscribe, watch, like it, hate it. Leave me a shit review if you want. I don't care. Bella is about to go on her perch, and we're about to hit the pool. A lot of people waiting, a bunch of drunks. I'm about to have a blast. Later.